I'll tell you a few things from a management perspective, what's going on in the world and what I've seen over the last 15 years. I've been managing teams for about 30. I'll tell you what we're looking at Business View is almost like a case study about how the world is digitizing and how that your students are moving into this digital world, which we heard from some of the speakers, they're well equipped for. There was a moment, I think I go back, you can probably tell from my strange accent, I'm not from around these parts originally. I'm from the west of England in a small little country town, a little bit like Pemberton, which is one of my favorite parts of WA, sort of rolling hills and gambling sheep and forests and big cows. That's what I like those sort of areas. And I had 3 teaching jobs actually. I was teaching just north of London. Then I went to Singapore and I taught there for 8 years, where I met my wife. And then I was teaching here in Australia. So I actually had 3 teaching jobs on 3 different continents. So I ended up being a co-founder in this business. It was really, really tough for the first few years. We were trying to get real estate agents to stop putting their money in a wheelbarrow and taking it off to the West Australian every Saturday, and actually looking at something called the internet, where people might actually want to search first before ringing up the real estate agents. We know how lovely real estate agents are, who want you to get their claws into you once you ring them up. When I started here in 97, 98 looking for a house, because on a school teacher's salary, I couldn't afford a house in England. My first salary was £6,000 a year, and I had 2 degrees. I went to Singapore where my pay was significantly more. It was a 6-figure salary, but I couldn't afford a house there either. So Perth was where I was going to buy a house. And going around the home opens and looking at the paper on a Saturday morning, we had to wait till Saturday for the paper, big, thick real estate classified section. Lisa and I sitting on the stone cold kitchen tile floor of our little rental house in Crawley, because I was doing my UWA course, right? So we just got a little rental. And we were literally, it was like primary school activity. We had scissors and a glue stick and a piece of paper and the street map, and we'd cut out the ads of the properties that we thought fitted into our budget, and then we'd work out a sort of home open route, and we'd go out on the Saturday afternoon. We did that week after week after week, and I was sitting there going, scratching my head, it's not going to be like this. You know, I might be some idiot from England, but this is surely not how you look for properties. To which all my Australian friends said to me, well, you are an idiot from England, but it is actually how you look for properties. I went, seriously, this is not going to be how it's done. So we ran around raising some money, which was fairly easy actually back in '99, from high net worth individuals, MBA professors, the usual, and we launched out into this website. And we did that for, as I said, about 10 years. The first couple of years was really tough. The real estate agents at the start didn't want to put the price of the property on the property. They didn't want to say where the property was because they wanted the person to ring up. And we were a map-based property website, so after a few weeks, some of them rang me up and said, oh, we don't want a price on the property. We don't want to put where the property is. And I was saying, which bit about map-based property website did you not get? We're going to map the property on GIS technology on the web. We're the first actually to do that in the world. So I haven't yet found an earlier one. This is 7 years before Google Maps. It was ludicrously expensive. If any of you know much about Esri technology or GIS technology, right? But Perth is a centre of mapping expertise, GIS expertise, because of the mining industry. Take an isolated mining town like Vancouver and Perth, there you get GIS technology. So we were actually in a centre, a sort of global centre of mapping technology. So wind on 10 years, and the one thing, if you're going to forget everything I say, it's this is one of my sayings which I bore people with. People go, you know, oh, it changes so fast. Things are changing so fast these days. And I go, no, actually. Change happens slowly. Well, the best change happens slowly. Big changes happen slowly. Climate change, watching grass grow, paint dry. I mean, that wall is decomposing in front of your eyes, but you don't know it, would you? The change is happening so slowly. We are all doing that. Sorry, we're all aging as well, right? The shift from advertising in print, real estate agents putting their money in a wheelbarrow and just wheeling it to the West Australian, to putting their money in a wheelbarrow and wheeling it to realestate.com, which is now the big fish online. So they've gone from an offline monopoly to an online monopoly. It took 10 years. While you were during it, you couldn't really notice the change day to day, right? But over that 10-year period, it was a fundamental, massive change. This shift from print to digital, right, that's happened over the last 15 years, from old analog systems, whether it's television, whether it's radio, whether it's social networks, whether it's internet advertising, all of that. One big shift in our lives from print to digital. Such that now they've turned off analog TV, haven't they, a few years ago. So that I've got an old TV I was trying to hook up. I needed a digital box to get it to work. There's no more analog signal. You couldn't just, you remember the old rabbit wire aerials we used to have? And we used to move them around like Mr. Bean, trying to get the good reception. Gone are those days. And I remember going to see, over about 10 years, 4 different CEOs of the aforementioned print media empire I've spoke about earlier, who I will not name. And every time I walked away from discussions with this CEO, I was amazed by their lack of understanding of the internet and what it could do for them. I was amazed that they didn't just go and do it anyway and they could have squashed us like a fly. I was amazed at the arrogance, actually. And I was amazed, but mainly understandable, that they were trying to milk print for all it was worth, the last vestige of revenue in print that existed. They were kicking the can down the road rather than getting in like other print media. And they don't call themselves newspaper business anymore. You notice they call them media businesses now because they're multimedia. And some have done it better than others. And look, we are all feeling our way in this. No one's nailed it. No media companies really, if they are saying the truth, and I can say this, the CEO of Business News, no one really knows, I don't really know, exactly what's going to be the winning formula in media. But one thing I want to do is protect journalism. We've only got about 10 journalists at Business News, right? But they've got a high reputation in the business community in Perth. I get that a lot when I talk to people. I want to wrap cotton wool around them and protect them, seriously. Because where are we going to get our news and opinion and analysis from in the future? Bloggers? I blog. That's great to blog. Cool. Anyone can blog. Go to WordPress. There's 250,000 blog posts done a day. A day, right? That's great. There's fantastic things you can find on blogs. Fantastic videos on YouTube and Facebook pages. Great. But where are we going to get? The person who has gone to university, got trained, understands the difference between an opinion and fact, between reason, an argument, and assertion, understands the difference, who's going to take the time to find the truth, to analyze it, and then provide that for us in the future. I worry if that, journalism as a whole, gone. In 10 years, gone. Unless we can sort out some sort of media model, some sort of business model for the media, then what are we going to be consuming in the future? I worry. I worry about some of the media companies that are turning editorial into advertorial. I worry about that. You know, what are we being fed? I worry about that. I worry about this. One of the scariest charts I've ever seen. This is from the US. This is newspaper ad revenue adjusted for inflation over the last 60 years. And the blue line is print revenue, and the red line, you can hardly see it, is online revenue. So they had a very nice 50 years where everyone went to the media to get their real estate, to get their cars, to get their boats, to get their jobs, to read the opinion. And all this classified income kept these media companies going. And over about 10 years, it's gone. It's carsales.com. It's seek.com.au. It's realestate.com. The rivers of gold, as Holmes of Court and Alan Bond and the rest of them in the 80s talked of, gone. All right? And very few of them have made really serious inroads into online and made it work. And now the generation you're teaching, under 30, they don't get their news from newspapers. They don't even know what one is. They don't even open one up. They get their news from Facebook feeds, right? From maybe a news that's online that's been shared by a friend. Maybe has a cool video in it for about 90 seconds. or even 5 seconds Vine, because 90 seconds is too long, right? What is worrying about this chart is that the red line does not fill the gap of the blue line's crash. That's the worry. So, nothing like a challenge. 3 years ago, after I'd sold my business to Rewa, and I was working at Rewa.com for 3 years, the owner of Business News comes and has a coffee with me and tells me about the digital transformation of a brand I love, WA Business News. I've been a subscriber for 10 years. And says how they're going to make data and news work for a business audience in Perth, and how no one was doing this in Australia, and how even the organizations in America to which Business News belong, a conference I went to a few weeks ago in Charlotte, North Carolina, not even they have got this strategy, but we're going to be putting this strategy in little old Perth, WA. And so I was hooked. I thought, I'm interested. And I've been there a couple of years. And I've been the CEO now for about 6 months. So I came on literally as they brought on their digital strategy. Whereas for 10 years, Business News was a paper, or WA Business News was a paper where the ink came off on your hands, you know those papers? And it had a website. I never went to the website. I think barely 2 or 3 times over 10 years. I just like to get the paper every week. And it was a weekly paper, you know? And it was about business, and I might see some friends in it from my old MBA days or whatever. But just keep what's going on, you know, in the business community, because I'm running a business. And real estate is very much, what happens in real estate is very much a reflection of what's happening in the broader economy. Now, property prices tripled during the last 10 years, but we had a super boom. We had an unprecedented super mining boom, which is now over. So we're returning more to normal times. A lot of people are crying about that, but it's just the new normal. It's actually the old normal, right? During that period was unprecedented. So what these guys have done is that we're going to provide data to people, you know, the book of lists online, we're going to provide all that, and we're going to have people subscribe for the online. That's the value. 1 million articles online, all searchable. Tens of thousands of companies, all with pages online with information about that company that you cannot get anywhere else. Information on private companies you cannot get anywhere else because they've had to provide information to get listed in the book of lists. All that's online. And we're going to be keeping up to date people with email twice a day, 7 a.m., 4 p.m. And over 2 years, that's been quite a transformation. I'll just show you some of the stats. And we've got this product called BNIQ, Business News IQ. Over the last 4 years, and I've been there just over 2, our print income has fallen 30%, and it's our largest income. It's actually held up pretty well. It's not fallen off the cliff like that previous chart I showed you. But digital advertising has grown 300% from a low base, but is now over $1 million a year. When I walked through the door a few years ago, there was barely an ad on the website that was paid for, and I think the only one was sold by you, Michael. Well, I think you'd sold a few when you were there, right? But there were barely any others, right? They were in-house ads, right? There were a few ads on the email. The email went out twice a day to about 17,000 people. Today, 47,000 people get that twice a day. We send 90,000 emails a day, millions a year. That drives 2/3 of the traffic to our website. And event income has actually been very stable. We just do 5 key breakfasts a year, and we do a couple of award shows. Rising Stars Awards we've just had recently for private companies, and 40 Under 40, where we highlight 40 people under the age of 40 who are doing great things in business and community. So we do that in about March time. So we say we're in print, we're online, and we're in person. I don't care where people want their business news. If they want it by email, if they want it on an app, if they want it on a PC, if they want a tablet, we still have some rusted-on print guys who go nowhere near the web. God bless them, right? But I tell you what, next year, most likely, the paper's going fortnightly, and we're not going to skip a beat. It's incredible effort to print, but not just to print, to post. Postage is going through the roof, and businesses are going to have to pay for it. For 95% of all postage is from business. Residential don't send letters anymore, so when's the last time you got a letter? Right? I used to get one from my mum. Bless her, she's passed away, so I don't get that anymore. We're digitizing fast. Over in the States, this group called the AAABP, a group of business publishers. I just went to their conference recently. Their digital revenues are around about 12 to 18% of their total. At Business News, our digital revenues are 36%. I tell you, 2 years ago, it was 7%, so it's grown very fast. Jeanette Larkin from the Des Moines Register, she says, it's amazing how large digital revenues are in Australia. We're on 16%. They're still very print heavy. Over there, the economy is doing really well, though. They've really grown sort of year on year the last few years. I think we're tougher. What's interesting is this chart that I'm fairly proud of. The last 2 years, our traffic has grown, just about doubled, up to about 100,000 uniques a month. 2 years ago, we put a paywall up, so you couldn't even get an article. You couldn't even get more than the first 2 paragraphs unless you were subscribed or you were registered, right? So we drew a line and said, sorry guys, this content is valuable. We're not going to give it away for free. I know the newspapers did that. They made a big mistake when they did that. The Daily Telegraph in 1997 in England was the first one to do it. They were selling papers, selling advertisers in papers, then they gave all their content away for free on the internet. Everyone got used to it to free, and then years later they're trying to climb back up and paper over the cracks and put up paywalls. We've actually had a paywall since 2002, but a very strict paywall in 2013. What is interesting is our traffic has doubled. So I say if you create something that's good content and you make it scarce, sorry you have to pay for it, people will pay for it, and you'll get more traffic. Interesting, isn't it? Right? But you draw a line in the sand and say, no, this is valuable. We're not trying to be better, cheaper, faster. We're pretty fast. I reckon we're better. We're not trying to be cheaper. Yeah, you can go and get this stuff for free, but a lot of this stuff you can't get anywhere else. So, how am I doing for time? A couple minutes to wrap up? Awesome. Do believe your industry is under attack from the digital warriors who are coming in from abroad. It's not much fun to be in the hotel industry with Airbnb, the largest accommodation provider, and they don't own a single hotel room. It's not much fun if you're in the taxi industry and you pay $215,000 for your license, and Uber come in and take 10% of the taxi industry in 9 months, right? And 100,000 people in Perth download the app and use it, and 15,000 people in Perth become Uber drivers in 9 months. What sort of power is that? That is frightening. So don't believe your industry is not under attack. Believe it's under attack. Do not be the arrogant print media who sit around poo-pooing the internet when they could have got in and owned it. Because if you leave it, it just gets more expensive and more difficult to react later. Right? Think how you can use digital to lower your costs, to add new revenue, new services, go into new markets. To better understand customers' needs, we can track people now when they register for our website. We can see them coming back. We can see which articles they're reading. We can see them using up their 8 free clicks a month, and we ring them up and we say, can we help you through that paywall? Have you got your credit card ready? Because we see you're enjoying our content. Why don't you have access to all of it? And you can look at offshoring your less essentials. So when I was running the Aussie home business, set up our own web development company in India. Actually, now at Business News, we still use it. Don't think markets will be the same. Markets will not be the same. Don't ignore and be arrogant of your business plan. And don't think digital transformation is easy. It is not easy. And we may be right, we may be wrong. We've gone on our direction. Other companies have said, let's make everything free, let's go after page views, and hopefully we'll sell lots of ads on our websites. To me, that is a race to the bottom. Cost per million, CPM, is falling. The Fin Review sold cost per million views at about $135 a few years ago. They're now selling them for $8. It's a race to the bottom. Thank you very much.